Hey gang, it's Todd Nauck again, and it's time for the inks for this Wolverine Hulk piece on this A plus X cover. Now, what you see me using here right off the bat are French curves. With Wolverine's claws, I want a nice, long, smooth line that is, not all wonky and wobbly and wavy from inking it freehand. So I use my drafting tools to make sure those lines are clean and smooth. So using a French curve gets me just the right amount of curve to it, as opposed to using like a straight edge, like a ruler or a triangle. Triangle is another drafting tool that we use for our straight edge shots. So I want a curve to it. So French curves, a very important drafting tool I've used for as long as I've been in the business, all the way back to art school days. So again, here on these claws, cutting in here with the curve, and I find just the right curve that matches up with the pencils. The French curves are three different templates here that have different arcs to the curves on the tool here, so I can pick which curve fits just right and use it kind of like a ruler to ink in just the right angle and shape. And my head is way too in this shot. I apologize that you have to look at my ear. At least you can see what I'm inking. Hopefully I don't do that the whole video. My apologies. So yeah, utilize your drafting tools when you're inking. You don't have to get those long, perfect lines just by freehand, especially when you're doing something that needs to have a nice, clean look to it. So utilize those drafting tools. It's all part of the job. So as I'm coming in here with my Pigma Micron marker, which I posted here earlier in the video, I'm using the 08 right now, which I often use, as in previous inking videos, for the initial contours and the bulky line shapes. This really gives especially things in the foreground, you want to have a thicker shape, thicker line to create that sense of closeness. It's closer to you, I should say. I'm using the 08, so I'm able to get the thick line like I did on the shoulder there, but the little detail lines I can just not press down as hard and get thinner lines with that same marker, so I don't have to switch down to a 01 necessarily, or a 005, though I will use those at when it's necessary. But the more you become familiar with the tools and the more you know what they can do, you can utilize that knowledge, and it helps save a little extra time there. So I really do enjoy the inking stage of any piece that I do. It's really putting in those final lines and getting the image just the way I'm envisioning in my head. It's really getting down to the final look there, just prior to the color. Final line art look, I should say. So I really do enjoy the inking stage. So I'm now using a Pigma Micron 01 marker. It's a smaller inking tip, so I'm able to get finer lines, and I want finer lines for the detail in the face. I don't want them to be as thick, so that they look. I want that clean look, and I think I used the 005 for the little teeth there. So utilizing the thinner marker tips is very critical when working on different types of details. I need to make sure I know what it is I want to work on and what I'm trying to achieve, and not just use any old marker for any old costume aspect or shape. So know what it is you want to do. Have your plan and work that plan. Let's see. Just tightening up some of the details here before I move on to the Hulk. Now, when I mentioned in the first video of this series is that this one is a multi-character piece. So I'm considering where two characters are at. And I mentioned in the first video the spatial relations between the two characters. Wolverine we had in the foreground, and I used fairly thick lines on his head, his shoulders, his hands, the different aspects, so it has a nice sense of depth. Now with the Hulk, he's still relatively close, but he's not as close as Wolverine. So there's going to be a certain amount of thickness and thinness in the line weights. Sometimes I consider the shadow of the body part, like his chest muscle there. I have a little bit thicker line at the bottom to create a sense of shadow, or underneath the bottom part of the bicep, or the bottom part of the tricep, or the bottom part of his the palm of his fist. I consider light source and also who is where. And so it's not like Hulk is way distant in the background, so I'd use a really thin line. I'd still use my 0.8 to marker to do the thicker contours, but I'm also keeping in mind he doesn't have to be quite as the lines don't have to be quite as thick as Wolverine's, because I do want to create a subtle sense of distance. And so that's going to be just a little bit thinner of a line. And it again, as I've said before in many other videos, it just comes with experimentation and practice and figuring out what looks best. So this isn't anything I figured out overnight. It's been a lifelong process of study and practice and trial and error and success and failure to kind of find what it is I like and what works. So always keeping in mind light source and shadow, and putting the darker line underneath at the bottom of, or the opposite side, I should say, of where the shadow is. Now I'm coming in here with a Pentel brush pen. I believe this is my Pentel pocket brush pen for the hair. As I've used in previous videos, the shapes that you can create with a Pentel brush pen, especially in hair and in dark areas, can look really cool. So, but it takes a bit of time to learn how to master the brush pen. So give yourself a lot of grace when working with a brush pen. Let's see. So now with the Hulk, especially here in his face, further back, I need to keep those details nice and thin with a finer point marker so that things don't clump up too much. It's not quite my style to have clumpy lines here in my face. Keep it tight, keep it clean, but then that's just my style. Your style may vary. So it's always keeping in mind what is where and how far back things are going. So his head is farther back than his fists. So the lines are just going to be subtly a little thinner. So I've kind of figured out what my take is on my inking style, my line weights, and what's in the foreground, what's in the middle ground, what's in the background, and how thick or thin should those lines be. But general rule of thumb, things that are close in the foreground would have thicker lines than the things that are going further in the background. Keep getting thinner with your lines the further back you go. If there was something behind Hulk, I'd have even thinner lines, because it's going to create that sense of distance. The details are going to become thinner and thinner as you go further and further back. But fortunately, we're not going that far back because we've run out of room on this cover, so the Hulk is as far back into the background as we're going with this piece. All right, and then pretty much got all the Hulk contours done here, and I can go in and put in a few little more details. A little bit of cross hatching, like here on the muscles, give the eye a little more to play with. Eye candy. Be very careful when you're putting in details. Really have a mindset in what you're doing with your cross hatching. I see a lot of young artists that just throw in a lot of lines, and they're in there haphazardly, and they don't enhance the piece. It actually makes it look really cluttered. So you really want to have an idea of what are the cross-hatching and detail lines doing for your piece. And my rule of thumb is, are they showing the form and solidness, if that's a word, of the piece? Even like with Wolverine's arm hair, I consider the contour, the angle of the body, the muscle shapes. So I'm going to use the arm hair to help create that sense of roundness of his muscles. They're going to go in a certain direction, a certain flow, and curve in a certain way that it's showing the mass of Wolverine's arms. Same thing when doing cross-hatching on a non-hairy character, let's just say, is considering what direction are those lines going, and are they giving a sense of shape and form to the character's muscles, their head, like even here on the chin, the facial hair. These are going to go in the direction of the muscles and bone structure of Wolverine's face. I want to enhance that. So keep that in mind when you're doing your detail lines and cross-hatching. And that does it for the inks. You can see the full image on my Facebook fan page. The link is below. And stay tuned for the Copic color video coming soon.